Hey, good morning and welcome to Yeshiva YouTube. Just Daf It. Today we're doing Nedarim, Daf Mem Zayin, number 47. A great share for you today. We're going to talk about answering someone's food that belongs to them, or something which is low bal olam, something which hasn't yet come into the world. We'll discuss also answering things that you don't yet own, but you will exchange for property that you do own. All most fascinating questions you've been wondering for the past 20 years. All right, let's get started at the top of Mem Zayim and Aleph. Omer lechavero. It's an explanation of the Mishnah. Boya vime konim lebaya zeh sheta nichnas. He asks the question. He says, if you take a neder, lebaya zeh, this house, ani nichnas, right? As opposed to another person. The Mishnah was talking to another person. Makes a distinction if you say bayit zeh or beito, beitcha, right? Your house. But what about if the person himself who owns it, right? Bayizesh nichnas, that he says, I don't want you to come into my house. I'm making either not while it's my house, but on the house itself. Meiso shemachal and then he died, or he sold the house to another person. Mao, could the person who he took the nether against come into the house and use it? Adam also could a person ask for something which is in Rishus now, for when it leaves his rishos? Rava Tashma. Rava says, let's bring a proof. Omer no. The Brayta says, he says to his son, Konam shiata nenesli. He says to his son, he's angry at his son, you can't get benefit from me. Umeis. And then he dies. You're shanu. So after he dies, he loses possession of all his property. So he could be, the son could be Yorishim. He's allowed to benefit from his property. However, if he indicated in his language, he says, not only in my life, but also after my death, you can't benefit from me. Umeis, and then he dies. Lo Yishenim, he can't benefit from it. Shmami, no, Adam oser davar shebeshusa lo jesim reshusa shmami. No, so you see a clear proof. A person could answer something that since it's in my rishus now, I can answer it even when it leaves my rishus. Dan Hasam, we learned over there, Al Mishnah later on in Masachas Nedarim, Konam Peros Elu Alai. He says these peiros, these specific fruits, he has a bunch of apples in front of him, are usher to me. Konam hein alpi, or he says these apples are usher to my mouth. Konam hein lipi, are a slightly different lashon, a slightly different language. Konam, these fruits, lim, for my mouth. Usher b'chilufein v'gelei. Not only is the usher in the fruits themselves, the usher for if you take the apples, dozen apples, and you exchange them for a dozen pears, the pears would be usher also. That's chilufein. That's what you exchange it for. Or money he would exchange it for, or gidulayan, or you take the seeds of the apples, like Victor Miller used to do, and plant a lot of apple trees. He didn't actually plant the apple trees, but he used to carry around seeds of apples. So if he uses those seeds and he plants new apple trees, those apples are also usher because they came from the actual apple itself. Bali Rami Rachama, based on this Mishnah, Rachama asked the question, Amar Konam Peros Elu Al Ploni. He says these apples should be usher not to me, to someone else, to Shimon. Mao Bichilufein. Right? Can Shimon benefit from the chilufin, right? If I were to exchange these apples for pears, he can't benefit from the apples. Could he benefit from the pears? Since when it comes to himself, I can answer someone else's oranges on me. So therefore I could also something which is davar shlo ba'olam, right? In a certain sense, these chilufin, these pears are not yet in the world, right? So therefore, a person can answer Darash Lo Bal Olam Al Asmo, or the classical Darash Lo Bal Olam, something which wasn't born yet, or fruits that were not grown yet. So that just like I can answer someone else's fruits on myself, I can answer something Shelo Bal Olam, which is not yet in my possession, on me. Gabi Chavero, what about his friend? Hova Ayin Adam Oser Peros Chavero Al Chavero. If a person himself owns oranges, Shimon owns oranges, I can't say, Shimon, you can't eat your oranges. Can't do that. It's not in your possession to aser. Similarly, a person can't aser something which is not in the world yet on his friend. In the chilufin over here, which is not in the world yet. Odilma, the Gemara Mem Zayin Beis, Mishum di chilufin ki yidulim dami, loshnehu v'loshna chavero. Maybe chilufin is not called davar shelo ba'olam, right? Davar shelo ba'olam, talking about a child that's not born yet or something like that, or a tree that wasn't planted yet. But however, chilufin, right? The apples exist now, and I'm going to exchange them for pears. The pears are in the world; they're in the market. They're just not in my possession right now. So it's like gidulin. Gidulin is when I have the seeds of fruit. I own the fruit right now. I'm going to extract the seeds and plant the seeds and make it trees. That's gidulin is really an extension of the fruit itself. So chilufin is like extension of the apples, as the pears are already considered like the apples themselves. Loshna hova loshna chaveros. Just like an asher myself, an asher my friend also. Amar Ravacha bar Menyumi tashma. He tries to bring a proof. Amar lech ishto. The right says this to his wife. Konam shani nenalech. He says to his wife, you can't get benefit from me, financial benefit, physical benefit. Lava ubali chovin bayin minifrai. What could she do? Right? Normally, the husband is obligated to feed his wife, to provide mizonos for his wife. She could borrow money and tell the people, collect the debt from my husband because he owes it to me. So that's what she could do. Bayin minifrai. She borrows money, buys whatever she needs, and the creditors come and collect the debt from her husband. My time up. Why are they allowed to do this? Right? The chilufin, this is really an exchange over here. She's taking out a loan over here. She's exchanging it for the creditors, collecting a loan from her husband. The collection is an exchange for the loan. So that's chilufin. That's an exchange. So therefore, she couldn't directly benefit, but indirectly benefiting by chilufin, she could. So obviously, chilufin or not could do it. It's not exactly the same thing. It's like davar shalabal olam. So like Rava pushes away the proof. Really, you're not supposed to do this. But if she did borrow the money, like his lava, if she did borrow the money, then they can come and pay back. So the chadchila, you're not supposed to do this. The benefit from the chilufin. The chilufin are like yedulin, but b'diavad, I'll explain why in Enoch ben Sion, b'diavad it's okay. Over here, then it's okay. Tashma. So the Gemara still hasn't proved anything. Hamakadish ba'orla is a Mishnah Maseches Kedushin. Hamakadish ba'orla. Orla is fruits from a fruit tree for the first 3 years. Not only can you eat it, you also can't benefit from it. Ain't Mekudeshes. You try to Makadish a lady with it. It's not Mekudeshes because it has no value, right? Anything just has no value. So you can't eat it. It has value. You can do other things with it, but if you can't benefit from it at all, it has no value. And you have to give a shava pruta to the woman to Mekudeshes. Machron, however, she sold the fruits of Orla. You're not supposed to do that. But Kiddush b'tnei, and he got money for the fruits, and he used that money to mekadesh the woman. Harizim kedeshes, but the evidence works. So you see what the chilufin, right, are not exactly the same thing as the orla fruits or something else. The money that he gets for the orla fruits are something else, and that's why the kiddushin is valid, right? If he would mekadesh with actual fruits himself, it's invalid. So the Gemara again pushes away. Really, you're right. Chilufin are like Yidul, and they are the same thing. But b'di'evid, it works. B'di'evid over here, it works. The Kedushin works because there's a difference in L'chilila and b'di'evid. If you want to understand why there's a difference in L'chilila and b'di'evid, by Chilufin. So Chilufin, in a certain sense, they're almost exactly like the Orla fruit. And in a certain sense, they're not like the Orla fruit. L'chilila they are, b'di'evid they're not. If you already exchanged it for money, it's not like the Orla fruit exactly. So chiluf is, in a certain sense, bala olam. In a certain sense, low bala olam. I'll explain in Enoch ben Sion the difference when it comes to Nedarim, chetchila and b'di'evid. Why should there be a difference in chetchila and b'di'evid when you chilufin by chilufin? And I'll explain the nature of chilufin in Enoch ben Sion coming up next.